welcome back to my channel. I'm Rachel, the owner and creator here at the Eclectic Cottage in Spokane, Washington. Today is Friday, and for today's video, I have a thrift flip for you. I grabbed a couple more small tables that we picked up recently on our junk runs and gave them both a makeover for today. As you know, I'm trying to work through all of the little tables that I've picked up recently and get them out of my kitchen and out of my way. So I was glad to get these two guys done. I'm really happy with how they came out, and I can hardly wait to show them to you. So without further ado, let's get to today's projects. My first end table today is this little vintage one that my husband found at the Goodwill on our last junk run. Now, this thing is older and it is super heavy, and I'm pretty sure solid wood. The only thing was it had one of those slick Formica-like tops on it. So I went ahead and took some 80 grit sandpaper and just rough sanded it. Then I removed the hardware and gave it a good bath with some crud cutter first, making sure to get all of the nooks and crannies, and then followed that up with some clean water just to rinse off any of that crud cutter residue. Then it's on to painting, and I already had a direction that I wanted to take this little table, and I knew exactly what color I was going to be painting it, and that is with DIY's Crinoline. Now, if you guys follow me, you know this is one of my favorite colors. I love the DIY paints, first of all, because they are clay-based, all natural, so I can use them inside, which is great. They're highly pigmented, super thick. And the other thing I love about them is they will go over just about any surface and stick to it really, really well. And this table did have a little bit of a slick finish to it. But the nice thing, again, about the DIY paints is you don't have to do a lot of prep work. Just a little bit of cleaning and it's ready to go. Now, this was a very dark table, so I did end up going over it with 3 coats of the paint. 2 coats covered it really, really well, but I also like to give my painted pieces just a really light sanding when I'm finished, and so I always want to make sure that I've got plenty of paint so that I don't accidentally sand down through my paint to the wood of the furniture. So again, once my paint was completely finished and dry, I took it outside, and this is just a little hand sander that I have some 220 grit sandpaper, and this sandpaper's been used many, many times, so it's not very gritty. And I'm just basically trying to get some of the brush strokes knocked down and just make sure this little table is nice and smooth when I go to finish it. Now, I did go around the edges with a little bit more 220 grit sandpaper just to do a little bit of distressing, nothing really extreme. I just wanted to show off a little bit of that super dark wood from underneath this beautiful crinoline paint. Once I was finished with that, I gave it a good dusting with my big fatty paintbrush here, and then I took it inside and got ready for the next step. For that, I needed to measure the inside and the back of it because I'm going to be using this absolutely gorgeous new decoupage paper. This is by Redesign with Prima. It was curated by Katja, and I'm probably going to slaughter this, but I believe it's called Toile de Jouy. And this is a gorgeous, gorgeous paper. So I measured my areas, cut out the pieces that I needed. Now, to get down inside here, you can see I kind of folded my paper up so that I could get it down where I needed it to go. I put down a layer of liquid patina and then just placed my paper down and then worked in sections going up the back of this little table with liquid patina and then laying my paper down. And once I had it all down, I went over it really well with another layer of the liquid patina. Once I was finished with the back of this table, I moved on to the bottom and used the same procedure. Just a starter strip of the patina, laid my paper down, smoothed it out, and then section by section laid a little bit of liquid patina down, smoothed my paper out, and once I had it all in place, I went over it with another good coat of the liquid patina. Now, I have found that the liquid patina is a perfectly adequate medium for applying these thicker fibrous papers. You just need to make sure that you put a decent layer down when you're placing your paper and then go over it with another pretty good coat to make sure that it's nicely adhered. I did add a couple pieces of this paper to the front of my drawer as well, again, using that liquid patina. Now you can purchase these products from me on my website, and that is www.theeclecticcottagespokane.com. Redesign's new release came out with a lot of new products, and one of the ones I've been excited to use are the molds. And the mold I'm going to be using today is called Soho Fusion. It's made to go behind your knobs, and I am pouring a 2-part casting resin. It's super easy to use. You just pour equal parts of each of the bottles into a container and then pour that liquid once it's mixed really well into your mold, making sure that you fill it up to the rim without overfilling it. You can see here, this is a time lapse of probably 5 minutes, and then it's cured and ready to pop out of your mold. Once I'd popped my little castings out of my mold, I went ahead and let them set for probably an hour or two before I came back to them and gave them each a good coat of DIY's Crinoline paint. Then I set those aside and moved on to sealing my little cabinet. For this, I'm starting with a coat of DIY's clear wax, and I am applying that with my soft bristle brush. And I am just going over this, just making sure to really work that wax down into all the nooks and crannies, and then wiping back the excess with a shop towel. I went over the entire piece, and that includes the decoupage paper. Now, the paper had already been sealed with liquid patina, but I liked the added protection of going over it with the wax as well, and again, just wiping back any excess. Once I'd finished the entire table with a coat of clear wax, and I did go over the top twice just to make sure it was very well protected, I moved on to dark wax. Now you can see here how thin the dark wax is as I'm applying it, and that is because I had dipped my brush into some mineral spirits and then kind of dabbed that into my dark wax to thin it out a little bit before I put it onto my piece. Now I had in mind a look I was going for with this piece, and so once I'd finished doing this very light coat of the dark wax on the sides, I went ahead and went back in to do a little bit of shadowing with more of the dark wax, and then just kind of dabbed that off in the areas that I was applying it, being careful not to wipe it all the way back off. So I just went along underneath the overhang of the top of this with a little bit more of that wax. And then I went along the bottom and did the same kind of thing, just really lightly brushing that dark wax on, and then very carefully dabbing a little bit of that dark wax back off just to kind of blend it into the rest of the wax. I wanted to give this table a very vintage, aged patina, making it look a little grungy, like it had been around for a very, very long time. And so that is what I was trying to accomplish when I was doing this dark wax. I did the same technique on the inside of the cabinet, and I also went along the corners of the paper and just kind of blended a little bit of the thinned out wax into the paper, again, to just give it a little bit of grunge, you guys. And I really accomplished the look that I was going for, but I ended up going back over this entire table with some clear wax, and I ended up lightening it back up, you guys. I liked the look of it, but I wasn't really in love with as dark as it was when I had finished the dark wax. So the beautiful thing about dark wax is if you don't like it, you can grab some clear wax and lighten it up. And that's exactly what I ended up doing with this table. So as much as this is showing you how it looked when I was finished with the dark wax, like I said, I actually did go back over it and lighten everything back up just a little bit in the end. Then I went over both of my castings, first with a coat of the clear wax and then with a coat of the dark wax. I really wanted to bring out all of the lovely detail in these, and that is exactly what the dark wax did. I wiped back the dark wax to reveal the raised areas a little bit better, and I really like how they turned out. Then I used a little bit of Type Bond Quick and Thick on the back of each of these and some knobs that I have found at Hobby Lobby. Now, in all honesty, I don't know if I'm super in love with these knobs either. I might change those out at some point, but I used those as a guide to attach my castings and then screwed my knobs into place. And then as a last step, I went ahead and applied a piece of the decoupage paper to the inside of this drawer just to make it look a little bit more finished. Once I'm finished laying down this piece of decoupage paper, my little table project is done, and in the end, I am very pleased with how it came out. My second little table project is the stand that I found not too long ago at Goodwill for $9.99. It looked like somebody's dog had chewed on this part of the leg, and so I sanded it as smooth as I could get it. There were definitely some wood parts that were missing though, so I mixed up some Bondo to fill those in. Now, if you've ever used Bondo, you know that it is really, really smelly. So it's definitely something you want to do outside. And once you put the little hardener in it, you don't have a lot of time. It hardens up pretty quickly. So I am smoothing that out over my leg, and then I set it aside and let it dry. And then I came back with my sander and sanded everything smooth again. Then I gave it a coat of black spray paint just so that I had a matching base throughout the entire piece. Once the spray paint was completely dry, I brought it into my kitchen and gave it a good bath with, again, some crud cutter, and then followed that up with some clean water and just wiped it down with my shop towels. As I was cleaning this, I did find another little crack in one of the legs. So for that, I just grabbed out some putty and filled that crack up and then set this aside so that that putty could dry before I moved on to painting. Now for this piece, I'm using Sweet Pickins milk paint, and this is the color Ocean, which just so happens to be on sale this month. I've never used this color, and I was really curious as to what it would look like on this piece, so that is why I grabbed it. I did add the recommended amount of Extra Bond to this. I didn't want a lot of chippiness or crackling on this piece. I really wanted a nice, even, smooth finish. So when you're mixing your milk paint, you want to use 1 part milk paint to 1 part water. I like to use nice piping hot water, and I use a little milk frother to mix it just to avoid any chunks in my paint. And if you're adding Extra Bond, it's half as much Extra Bond. For this table, I mixed up a 1/4 cup of paint with a 1/4 cup of hot water and added 1/8 cup of Extra Bond. And I used that on all 3 coats of paint that I put on this table. I love milk paint because it does end up with a very, very smooth finish. It self-levels, which is great, and I just love the kind of eggshell feel that it gives a piece. I did end up going over that black with 3 coats of the paint. Luckily for me, my 1/4 cup that I'd mixed up was exactly enough. Then I just very lightly sanded the top and around the rim of the table. I didn't want to do any distressing, so I was careful not to go through the paint. I just wanted to make sure that if there were any little chunks left behind, that I sanded them off. Once I'd finished sanding, I wiped back my sanding dust with a damp shop towel so that I could move on to the next step. Now, in all honesty, at first I hadn't really planned on putting a transfer on this table, but as I was going through my stash, just in case, I came across this set. This is called Natural Wonders, I believe. It's an older set by Redesign with Prima that I've had for a while, and the leaves are almost a perfect match to the ocean color, so I just couldn't pass it up. I needed to use it. I picked out the parts of the transfer set I wanted to use, cut them out, and then I peeled the backing of this first piece off and began to apply it. Applying a transfer is a very simple process. You simply peel the backer off, lay it down where you want it to be, rub it into your paint a little bit so that it sticks, and then you use the transfer stick to apply the transfer down to your piece. As you're rubbing, you peel the piece of vellum on the top away so that it just leaves the transfer stuck to your piece. You need to just be careful and patient, and if you do end up pulling up a little bit of the transfer with the vellum, just lay it back down and re-rub that area. So I use this same technique to apply both of these pieces of transfer to the top of my table. Once I was finished with the transfers, the final step on this little table is sealing my paint. And I decided to try something a little different. Normally for milk paint, I use the Sweet Pickins oil wax, but I wanted to kind of add a little bit of softness to this table. So I decided to try to use DIY's white wax. And honestly, you guys, I absolutely love the result here. So I am just applying the white wax like I would any other time with my soft bristle brush in one solid even layer, and then wiping back the excess with a shop towel. And it just added such a beautiful, soft feel to this paint. I absolutely love it. I did put a little heavier coat on the legs just because I really wanted some of it to stay behind once I was done wiping it back. So I just very gently wiped back kind of in a downward motion so that some of that wax would be left in the little indentations in these spindles. Once I was done with the wax, this little table is finished, and you guys, I absolutely love how it came out. That's it from here for today, you guys. I hope you liked my little table makeover, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please remember to give it a thumbs up. I so appreciate that. And if you haven't already, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel and then just hit that little notification bell so you don't miss anything. And then don't forget to drop a comment below and let me know which of the tables your favorite was. Also, as a quick reminder, any of the paint and products you saw me use today can be purchased through me at my website, and that's www.theeclecticcottagespokane.com. For Tuesday's video, I'm really not quite sure exactly what that's going to look like at this point. I have a feeling it's going to be footage of the Garden Expo. Today is setup day, and so I'm going to be leaving here in just a little bit to take my first load down and get my booth set up, and then tomorrow is the expo, and then of course Sunday's Mother's Day. So I'm not going to have a lot of time to be in my kitchen, unfortunately, doing projects, but I'm hoping to get some footage of the setup down there. And we were supposed to have 300 vendors this year, you guys. So I want to show you some of the little tent city that kind of just all of a sudden appears on the college campus that we're at. And then hopefully some footage tomorrow of the expo itself and all of the people that come. It's pure craziness in the morning down there. So I can hardly wait to share it with you. So hopefully I actually remember to get footage for you guys. So I hope you'll join me on Tuesday for that. Until then, I hope you have a wonderful weekend, you guys, and I will see you back here on Tuesday. Thanks so much for being here. Bye.